Good evening, everyone. Thanks for stopping by. I hope you're having a great day or a great evening whenever you're watching this. So, continuing to share progress on the second prompt for Roxy's Journal of Stitchery, Down the Garden Path. So, I've been working on this a little bit since we last chatted. And I think last time we chatted, I forgot to tell you that I'd cut out this inner section where the door, this hidden secret door goes, because I wanted it to be so that the door could open inward and really just the lattice work framing around the door. So I'd done that before the last time we were looking at this together, but I just forgot to mention it. I've also done Kantha stitching, or basically just an up, down, up, down, up, down stitching all the way down the length of the door. Because what I found as I started to do some of the work down the bottom was that there was a little bit of puckering happening on the fabric above, and the Kantha stitch is great for getting your piece to be really cohesive. So I thought we could start, in case there's anyone watching that hasn't done Kantha stitch before, and we can, and it's also the Japanese, there's a Japanese technique also that's exactly essentially the same stitch, but it's used in Kantha quilts as well. So I'm just going to pin back these bits of lattice work, lace lattice work, I guess, and just so that we can work down here without having that in our way. So I'm just going to pop my needle up, which has just a knot on the end of it. Going to pop my needle up through the fabric, and then just going to pop it down at a length of about, I guess, half a centimetre or thereabouts, and then leave about half a centimetre, and I'm spacing it again about a little under half a centimetre across from the previous row, and we're just wanting to do stitches down at approximately even intervals, but you don't need to worry about making it exact. The other bonus I've got is I'm using a thread that's a pretty similar colour to the base colour of my door, so I think that's, and I just managed to prick my finger, but that's okay. And so because it's a similar thread colour, it's not going to be really contrasting with the fabric, so even if it's not exactly perfectly spaced or anything, it doesn't matter. And it's actually just the effect you get from the mass of the stitches rather than focusing on individual stitches. So you can do it the way I'm doing it, just poking it through and up and down, or you can, let me just bring my needle through to the front. You could gather it through a couple at a time. I prefer to just do the up and down. I just find that a bit more relaxing, but this is just another way you can do it. Can be harder if your fabric's got a fair bit of thickness in it. You might find the up and down technique a bit easier. So I'm just going to go back to the up and down because that's what I enjoy doing. So I hope you've all had a great day, doing good things, creative things maybe. First working day of the week here. That was a good day. And as always, eager to get into the evening of stitching. And this evening I noticed that my garden, because it's been quite warm again, the warm weather's definitely back here in Melbourne, and my garden was looking a little bit, some of the tomato plants were starting to wilt and look a bit stressed. So I thought, oh, I really should water the garden, but I was so eager to get back up to my craft room. I thought, okay, I'll put the sprinkler on in a couple of the garden beds. So I've got some raised garden bed. So I popped it on, fully thinking I will go back down in about five minutes and check on it. Anyway, my phone pings, not quite sure how much later, but certainly a lot later than I was planning to go down, and it's my partner downstairs who's watching something on the couch, and we both think it's kind of funny to send a message to each other when we're in the same house, but I was upstairs with the door closed and he thought I might have been videoing. And so he's sent me a message. I can't even remember. Oh, no, I can't actually look at it on the phone because I'm filming with the phone, a message sort of saying, you might want to come down and check on the sprinklers. And yeah, there was quite a lot of well-watered garden, let's just say. But all good. It needed a bit of a dousing, and a few of the other areas will the sort of side garden beds, they all have some nice water flowing into them. We're lucky because we actually have a number of, I guess, what would you call it? Sort of almost like terraces, I guess. We have an upper terrace and a lower terrace, and the lower terrace is great because it kind of collects more moisture down there. When there's rain, I guess it flows, because we're on quite a hilly area as well. It kind of comes down through the layers of soil and sort of, yeah, passes down. And so that garden actually stays quite nice and holds its water well, particularly deep down, which is good because the plants can then reach down to those deeper sources. Hopefully I'm staying on camera. I sometimes get a bit lost in the stitching and the chatting and then forget that I've got to keep myself on camera. As with pins, they always get a bit in the way when you're stitching, so you'll want to kind of try and position a bit away from where you're working. So yeah, Kantha stitch, or really just an up down stitch that just unifies it all together and makes it really cohesive, but also just gives a bit of extra decorative detail. So for me, this is kind of making the door look like it's got its planks of wood, I guess, and also giving it a bit of an aged look, because the little bits where it's puckering, which previously were sort of larger bits of puckering, are now just looking like the sort of, I guess, the warping of wood, or the natural knots in the wood. I'm just going to do a tiny one there, and then I'll just put a couple in down the very bottom, down here. It's a bit of shadow. It is getting darker outside. The sky's actually a beautiful pinky purple, just such gorgeous colours. And the cicadas are singing their song, and the birds were singing before. It's a bit of a symphony of nature, which is very fitting when you're doing your down the garden path stitching piece. So just gonna knot that off because we've done all our stitches that we need to do. Just putting a knot at the back, and you can see while I'm doing that that I've done quite a lot of tapestry wool stitching, which we can talk about in a moment. So yeah, the thread that I was using, don't know if you can even see that, yeah, it was a very similar sort of colour to the door itself. So that's the door now all nicely unified. I can take my little pins out, put them back in the pin bowl, and we'll stick them back in properly later. And then with my lattice work, I've stitched it down at places, but I've left it not fully stitched down, because I've got an idea where I want to use this garden twine and create basically some wending, weaving vines that can go up over the lattice work. And actually I'm hoping that they'll, I want to really play to the texture and the way that this thread sort of holds its own shape, to have it sitting a bit off the piece. So I wanted to suggest to folks, if you're running a bit low on like green tapestry wool or pearl or other threads, maybe you can raid your garage shed or your little garden kit. You can get the plain brown twine, but I thought the green twine might be great for a whole range of things, because it is really textural, but it also, yeah, holds a shape. And the other great thing you can do is you can create your own fibres out of it. So this, I just rubbed it, essentially just like sort of pulling bits off like that, just to get this, which could be then shaped into little shrubs, or could be used to sort of delineate hills or something like that. So I thought that could be a whole lot of fun as well. But let's not get sidetracked. So the bit where I've been doing quite a bit of work, you'll remember that we had some very vibrant coloured trees down the bottom. I said don't worry about it because we're going to be doing work on those. Now I've trimmed all the pieces of the lace work down the side. Originally I had it sort of overlapping off, but I decided that no, I'll just bring it right down, partially because I wouldn't be able to do this level of detailed stitching on pieces that were hanging off the edge and didn't have fabric behind them. So that's the thinking there. And what I'm planning to do, the reason I've left the bottom bits on, is I am planning to tuck them under and then to potentially have something, and haven't decided exactly what yet, but maybe a piece of fabric like this. And this piece has some good fringing-y bits on it as well. Let me just move it up for a seckie so you can see a bit more of the fabric. But this might come as a second stage, particularly if we're going to have a bird prompt later, and I'm planning to put my robin and my key down here. So I thought that could be kind of nice, because I want this other garden to be a bit more shaded, a little bit darker, a bit more muted, and then the secret garden, which will go up the piece, right up to my piece up the top, which was the first piece I created, the moonlit garden. I want that to be full of vibrancy and life. So playing around with that. The interesting thing was when I was pulling bits of thread off this piece along one of these edges, it was this nice sort of khaki coloured edging, and I ended up with this little mound of scraps. Now you're going to laugh. It's like you'll probably be thinking, gosh, does she not throw anything at all out? Anyway, I was just playing with it in my fingers like this, and then I thought, wow, that could be a little bird's nest, and we could put even some little pearl-shaped eggs in it. We could even have a little mama bird or something on it. Haven't decided that yet, but I was thinking that will ultimately end up in this little, and I'm in this little alcove at the top of where the lacework is, and I'm thinking of having it slightly sitting off the piece as well. So we'll have to do some stitching around it to sort of give it its shape and its dimension, but that's the thinking for that. So a little bird's nest up there would be fabulous. But let's get back to this. So what I've done with these lacework pieces, or this one that I've started, and I've finished this one and then started that one, is I've done a whole lot of French knots in 3 different colours of tapestry wool. Now these were some tapestry wools that my partner's mum gave me, so it's really nice to be able to use these, and I thought they're really good, I guess, tonal combinations for the background watercolour painted lace. So here I've started doing the dark one, and I've got a bit more dark thread to go, and I thought we could do some of those French knots together. And then I've done just little individual lazy daisy stitches over the outside area. I'd also first of all just done an overstitch with a sort of darker green thread, but then I decided I really wanted that textural element and the look of almost little sort of sticky out leaves or bits, which I did with this coloured khaki, sort of, not quite a khaki really, a bit of a cleaner green than a khaki. So really, really happy with the effect on that tree. It's fantastically raised, so it gives that real sense that it's in front of the door and a bit out from the door. And I think it'll be great to have the other ones at the side done as well. So let's do some of those. I'll take my little pin out. For the tapestry wool, you need a needle that you can thread. I'll just hopefully get this threaded without too much ado. Okay, so I'm just distributing these around. Where's my thread? I'll just pop up somewhere where my thread is. So I reckon I might put one just over here. So you pop up through the fabric. You might find with the tapestry wool you need to give it a little wiggle as you bring it up. And then I'm going to wrap it around my needle. And I started off with the first one doing just 1 wrap, but then I've graduated to 2 because I think it just gives a bit more of a bobbly look. And then you pull your needle back down through your fabric. So I'll try and do one a bit more on camera up here. So you're popping up through your fabric. You're then going to wrap it once, twice through the needle, and then you're going to take the needle back down through the hole while you hold the other bit of thread with your other thumb, just so that it keeps that nice knot formation. So let's just do another one here. Might just sit it down because it's a bit easier for me. So we're wrapping once, wrapping twice, and then taking it back down through the hole while we hold it down with our thumb. And so you want a large needle, but you want a needle that's mostly straight because you don't want your needle head to be too much bigger than the needle itself, because it's got to do that pulling through. I'll probably only get one more in with this piece of thread, and then we might change colours. So I'll just do a knot at the back. So the tapestry wools or other types of wools are great for, I guess, creating some fantastic texture. So let's grab this one. Again, you probably don't want to make a huge length of it. Put a bit of saliva on it. That's kind of gross, I know, but I find that that does actually work to get it through. Leave my DNA on it so they can bring me back in a future generation. I was joking to Corinne, who's making these same videos, that she pricked her finger and ended up with a blood spot. I said, no, Corinne, you should leave it in your work so that they can bring you back in future generations, and you can explain your piece to them. But she'd just been talking, I think in a previous video from that one, about the fact that we should all be signing our work so that people who find it later on can hopefully have an idea who did the work. And there's sort of that reluctance, isn't there, because we're kind of just stitching for, well, many of us are just stitching for fun and pleasure, and I've just broken my needle, which is not fun or pleasure at all. Where on earth has that bit of needle ended up? Always the way, hey, you're on video and then things just go badly, well, not badly, astray. If that's the worst problem we have to deal with, there's my needle. That's the bit that I was worried about. I don't want to have weird bits of metal floating around my room. So do we have one that might be big enough? Okay, let's give this one a go. So oops, and we might need to cut another bit of thread because that one's ended up a bit short. I'll use that later on, but let's have a decent sized bit for now. So that can happen when you're, and that needle has had a, I don't know how long I've had that needle for, so it's had a pretty decent life, I think. You just don't want that little needle shard to end up in your finger. So thankfully that didn't happen. Hopefully we can thread this one because it's a bit of a tighter squeeze. Otherwise I might need to borrow one actually from my needle set over here. I wonder if I might use, it's called an upholstery needle. I wonder if I can use that one. The head's a bit bigger, but at least it will be threadable, one would think. I think it will be sharp enough. We shall see. So what else to tell you? Yesterday was Sunday, and so we headed down to Inverloch, which I think I've mentioned before, and had a lovely day down at the beach with the dog. So he loves swimming at the beach, loves playing with the other dogs at this particular beach, which is a dog beach. And yeah, it was a beautiful day, so we just paddled around in the water. And found this really fascinating section of sea wall where they'd built a structure from, I'm assuming, other bits of abandoned building. And there was what appeared to be, first of all, like someone had stuck newspaper down to the structure. But when I went up to inspect it, I discovered it was a hard layer of, I guess, like a ceramic or some sort of hard coating material on this concrete of what might be like a vintage newspaper, or it might have just been a newspaper of the day, and it had worn through in sections to where the cement was. But yeah, really fascinating. So I took a photo, or quite a few photos of it, and came home and printed them up, and I actually used it in my junk journal January yesterday, because the prompt for that was old and new, and I thought, well, there you go, old news in situ. And the fact that it just popped up when we were actually down there, and that I'd taken a photo of it, it was just, yeah, perfect timing. But just really fascinating. So I've been searching. I've searched a couple of times just to see if I could find any history on that, but can't see anything about it. So if anyone happens to randomly know about the newsprint decorated concrete or cement in the seawall at Inverloch, Dog Beach, let me know. Fascinating things to be discovered when you're wandering and looking and observing. I think that's one of the benefits of the whole COVID thing, is that we kind of learnt to investigate a bit more in our own backyards, and so yeah, I think we've got better observations of what we've got in our own spaces to enjoy. If you're not slightly pulled down, you can just sort of pick them up a bit more with your needle. This is actually an even better needle, so kind of glad that my other one decided to exit stage left. This one's really easy to work with. So that's an upholstery needle. It's always good to have a variety of needles to use. I've actually got to go back to my box of needles and refresh some of the ones, because I think, yeah, some of the ones in my little needle stack over here are quite old now. I've only got a little bit left, but it de-threaded itself, and I think I can probably get maybe one more knot in, maybe, before we have to tie that one off. So that's that one there. So we won't keep doing these knots for the whole evening, because I'm sure you've got other exciting things to watch or to do, but I just wanted to give you enough of an idea how they work. Let's just do one more knot down there. Okay, and I'll keep these little offcuts of thread, because who knows what they might be useful for, some grass or otherwise. So we'll do a few more in this colour, and I'll try and hold them up to the camera again, just so you can get that sense of how they're done if you haven't done them, or otherwise just Google French knots, and they're incredibly useful for flowers and a whole range of things. I use them in the moonlit garden piece as well. Use them for doing the little white flowers, and can't remember what else I use them in. But once we've done this, I'll quickly show you the lazy daisy stitch, and then after that, let's maybe start to have a look at how we might do the vines. So let's see if I can show you up close. We'll pop up down here, and then I'll just have to do this down here, I think. Wrapping it once and twice, and then passing it back down through the same spot, and while holding on to it so that it pulls through and forms its nice little knot. So let's do that again. Try and do it up here, hopefully I'm on camera. Yep. 1, 2, holding it, passing it back down really clumsily like I am right now, and holding on while you pull it down so it can form its nice little knot, and then just picking it out with the needle if it kind of pulls down a bit more. And sometimes you'll find if you're working with a really fine thread, you might actually lose the odd knot through to the other side, but that's fine. You can just sort of anchor it down and then continue along. It won't be a problem. And so you just want to intersperse the colours around if you're doing something like this with multi-colours. Doesn't matter if there's some little patches, because you kind of get that coloration with shadows and light catching. Oops, just brought a pale thread through. And you can play around with as many wraps as you want. If you start to do more wraps, you'll get a looser look to it. But sometimes that's what you want. But I decided 2 was the perfect for this particular thread and for the look that I wanted for these. But ultimately you want to get them quite close together. I still want to be able to see the coloured lace through it because I want to have that as a colour dimension without having to do stitches in that particular colour. But you want your little, you want to kind of be hiding the brick wall, I guess. So you want to fill in all the little holes. So let's just use this thread up and then we'll move on to the next one. And once you get going, you can get pretty fast if you've got the right sort of needle to work with. As I say, this one's a lot better than the one that I was working with before. So I'll have to remember upholstery needle for tapestry wool for French knots. I'm sure I won't remember that, and I won't remember to come back here and have a look. What else to tell you? Also, I've been playing around with transferring inkjet printed images to fabric. Now I've got some like proper transfer, Epson transfer paper, which I haven't actually tried to use yet, but it's sitting there in a box. But then I read that you could actually do it using Mod Podge, and you lay your image down on your fabric face down with a layer of Mod Podge and then peel the paper off once it's started to dry. And I've actually had some really good success with my initial little testing out. I might even show you one, but I want to do a bit more experimenting and then I might do a video with what I've discovered. I'm using the fabric Mod Podge. I think the video I saw, they were using a different type, the matte Mod Podge maybe. And they were mainly transferring it to like art canvases or wood or stuff like that. But the method definitely works. So I managed to de-thread, but I just want to put a stitch or 2 in at the back. I'm going to have to loosen back out my little bits of fringing because they've become caught a little bit in the stitching, but that will be able to be done afterwards. So let's just do a knot, and then I've remembered something else I need to show you that I did since we were last chatting together. It's hard to kind of remember because you end up just, yeah, working away and in that kind of meditative space, and then you forget, well, what was I doing, and what have they seen and what haven't they seen? So the other thing that I did that I wanted to mention to you was I've run stitching, green stitching where my plants are, and then black stitching all the way down each of the sides, just making sure that the woven section doesn't become loose. A little bug's flown onto my desk. It's like a little, I don't know, some sort of little critter, but that's okay. He can sit on my sewing. Don't have the windows open, so I don't know how he got in, but anyway. I suppose he's coming to explore my garden. So yeah, I've just used just my basic black thread, just a thread like this one. This is a little thing that has a little critter on it. Little bug, say hello bug. Just a thread like that, but the black one, and just done stitches over so that I'm holding down this side bit of fabric so that it doesn't fall off. Even though it's got that little fringing, there's a risk that as it gets handled, because I'd noticed up the top here this one was starting to unwind itself, so I just wanted to do over stitches all the way down. The only tricky thing was keeping those over stitches from not binding the fringing. So I can keep off camera doing that. I want to show you the lazy daisy stitchy bits now. I think I just used, yeah, I did use the full strands of this, which I assume are the 6 strands, I think. Yep, 6 strands are here. So let's just take a length of that. So that's just an embroidery floss. Now I probably, no, I don't think, do I want to use that needle? No, I think I'll use one of my other needles for this. Hopefully I can thread. Nope. Okay, let's hope that's better. Okay, we're threaded. We're cooking with gas. Okay, let's do our little knot on the end. Okay, and so what we do, I might do it up here because it'll be a bit easier to show you, and then we can come back and finish the rest of them, is you pop out, and there's a few ways to do it. I tend to do it this way, so I pop out and then I pop my needle back in just next to where that other stitch was, and then I pull it most of the way, but don't let it go all of the way. I save myself a little loop, and then I pop the needle out where I want to then anchor the, if we're thinking about a petal of a flower, in this case where we're thinking about the end of the leaf, where I want to anchor the end of my leaf, and then I bring my needle back down to anchor that loop in place, if that makes sense. Hopefully it does. So let's do another one. So we're popping out on the inside of this, oops, and we're almost popping the whole needle out because my hand caught it. We're popping the needle out here on the inside of the lace. We're then going to pop the needle back in next to where we popped out. We're going to make ourselves a bit of a loop, and don't worry if it goes a bit loopy. We're not going to pull the loop all the way through. We're then going to bring our needle up where we want the end of the loop to be anchored down. Bring it up. We're going to capture our little loop, and then we're going to bring our needle back down at that point into the fabric to anchor it. So let's do another one. Let's pop up on this side, give it a wiggle, pop down next to it. And then pop out where we want that to be at the side. And then it's anchored. So there we go. Let's do a few more. We'll just finish the thread off, I guess. No point leaving ends dangling, which then become problems. There's not too much left to use. Okay, pop up here. Okay, and then pop down there. And so you can do it in a sort of in a more single movement style. I just prefer this method, particularly when it's thicker fabric. But let me see if I can show you the other style. So in the other style, oops, where did my needle just managed to snag it with my hand on the other side. So in the other style, you'd bring your needle back next to the hole, and then you'd actually, actually how would it be? Like that, I guess. Bring it out so that but then you're getting your tail caught in the other end. That wasn't very seamless, was it? At all. And then you can just anchor your stitch down. Let's see if we can do a better one when the tail's not getting caught. So if you were to then just bring your other end out, it's harder, yeah, because it's a thicker piece that we're working with here. But yeah, you'd be basically capturing your knot as you do it that way. But I just find the other method works better most of the time for me. So I just go out, make my knot, come down, and then pop up and bring my knot across to where I want to catch it. Oops. I say it's easier and then I do it really clumsily and you think, my goodness, really? give it a wiggle if you get caught. It just means that the needle's capturing on some threads. So we've got a public holiday coming up on Thursday this week here in Australia. It's a day that has quite a lot of, I guess, contrasting views about it, Australia Day. But our traditional owners of the lands on which we are, many of them, don't see it as more of an invasion day and wonder why we're celebrating a day like that. So I choose to not celebrate Australia Day per se. I'll just reflect on our history. I think is something that I like to do on that day. Reflect on what has been done, and also reflect on reconciliation going forward. But I know we should never talk politics and things, but for me that's something that is important to me, to make sure we don't forget our history, that we don't repeat our history, and acknowledge that there are dark days and there's dark things that have been done, and there's a long way to go to get Australia to where it should actually be. So that's the completion of the stitches there. So I reckon now we can just have a quick little play. And I was going to use, then I just put something back in my pin cushion, but up the wrong way and pricked my finger again, but luckily not bleeding. So I think I'm going to use what is called in here the packing needle, because it's not particularly sharp. It's got a decent sized head on it. Just going to chop that bit off, and that can go in my little fibre pile over there. Let's see if we can thread it through. Goodo. Because the garden twine is quite coarse. So what I'm thinking is I'll probably start by maybe just passing it up from, and I'm not going to put a knot on because I haven't quite worked out yet exactly how I want it to look, but I'm just going to leave a bit of an end hanging out the bottom, I think. And then I'm thinking it can kind of wind its way up and through, and this is why I haven't fully stitched down my bits of lace work, because I wanted to be able to pass the needle through them, and not having a sharp needle that's going to catch is quite important for this task, but I want to leave out some loopy bits as I go as well. I don't know if you can see that, but it's actually sitting out beautifully from where the fabric is, and I want to have that, so I'll probably end up couching down where you do just little stitches over bits of it, but I'm going to want to leave it so that it does have some really decent twisting and twining around. So let's just have a little play. This is definitely to the playing section of the evening, so probably won't even do any sewing down yet. I'll probably just have fun seeing what sort of patterns and effects I want to create. And I reckon with these little bits of lace work here, I'll be able to do all sorts of fun. I'm thinking I'll have something coming down from this little inner section. I don't know if you can see it there, but I'm wanting to twine my vines, I think, all around. I was looking at some pictures from the various editions of The Secret Garden today, and there's lots of ivy and other things growing near the door in those pictures, so I think this is the perfect way to have that hidden door effect. So maybe I don't even need to, maybe I will just have the vine creeping around this section as well. Actually, maybe I should have popped it out there. This good thing about the needle, I can easily pass it back around. Should I maybe do one more loop there and then pop over here? I think it's going to be great and textural, and I think because I've decided that it's unlikely I want to roll it up, which I'd always been a bit reluctant to do anyway, because when you put a lot of investment of time in a piece, you don't really want to then go and have it hidden away. So I think this is going to be a wall hanging in our stairwell here, So it gives me quite a bit of height opportunity, but also that opportunity to have pieces sitting off. So I've already got quite a bit of texture here, but it will also give me the opportunity with this vine to be sitting right out from the piece like it is here. So yeah, I really like that. Probably have to make it a bit more random, I think, so some of them, rather than all coming around the circle in the same direction, have it a bit more looping and crossing. And yeah, I don't know, maybe I should put them all the way through this central area as well. So good thing about garden twine, very cheap material to work with. Can go to town with it, create all the texture in the world. Now where will I take it? Maybe over here, and maybe out this way. Could go absolutely crazy, which I might, because I do love that, but I don't want to totally obscure, I guess, all of my lace work, but maybe I can just not go all the way up to the top up there. I'm not sure. Maybe it could even just be down these sides, possibly. That could be an idea, actually. Have it just as these textural pieces wending and winding its way around there. I'm not sure. I'll have to play a bit with that, but let's just maybe keep bringing it down over here. Because I could get totally carried away and just almost end up covering up all of the nice lace work, which I don't really want to do. So we might just finish it off there. I'll leave that as a bit more of a loopy there. Right. And what I'm thinking with where the vine is using some, I think this is wool felt. It's from my Nana's collection of fabrics. I think it's wool felt because it cuts out as little pieces that don't fray, but it feels very different to an actual synthetic felt. And I'm thinking I've just cut out little leaf shapes one after the other, and thinking that we can sew those onto the vine. So let's just do one as a little test. Not sure what colour we'll want. Do we want a contrasting, got all my threads over here, do we want a contrasting colour for that, or do we want, that might be kind of cool to have something a bit contrasty. Okay, it's got a knot in it. So lovely to see everyone's videos. So thank you to the other so far ladies who are sharing their videos. If there are any chaps out there, definitely post a link below. And I reckon I can probably just use a single strand. I might use a slightly larger needle. Can you see the little beetles now making his way across? I don't know if you can see him. It's like he's coming to say hello. He wants to be part of the, you can't live in my garden, little beetle, I'm sorry. I think we'll have to relocate you outside soon, so I might have to sign off the video soon and take little beetle outside. But let's not get totally distracted. Let's get a little leaf done. And so I was thinking with the leaves, I'd like to have a little twist at the end of them. Let's see if we can create that somehow. So I'll just sort of, if I can, make it sort of pucker a bit and pass the stitch through the end of them. Let's see if that will work. I'll just get rid of the little taily bit. Maybe it's a sewing beetle, who knows. Okay, and I might even just do it on this end just so we can have, oh no, let's do it somewhere where we might actually have it being used. So I've done my little bit, and can we pass it through the string? And if we do that, can we just position it how we want it to be? Yeah, so if I do that, then I'm going to have little leaves coming off my vining, twining craziness by the door. Don't know if you can see that. Hopefully you can. Yeah, I think that's a bit of fun, and I think I'm going to have to go and save my little beetle. So I will say adieu. Thank you so much for watching. I'll keep working on my little bushes down here. Once they're done, I will be pushing them under down here. I'm thinking up the top I will probably add some green watercolor paint, not as bright as I've used down here. I'll use a darker color to make almost like it's grass growing along the top of the wall. And I might then also put some embroidery floss bits into it as well. Little beetle has stopped moving, but thanks for watching again, and I'll come back and probably be showing you the finished product of this. And then there's just a question in the time that I'll have then from Wednesday this week, or whenever I finish this, whether I want to start work on my little robin and key, given it does go with this, but there is that chance that there might be a future prompt of a bird. But I do actually have a thought of some other fabric that I want to incorporate with birds and butterflies, so I might still proceed with the robin, because I know I definitely want a robin and one of my grandpa's keys to go with this piece. So thanks again everyone for the lovely comments, and those that have been stopping by. It's just delightful to make new acquaintances in this world of sewing, and take care everyone. See you, bye.